getting here.
Es un honor.
Landed in the early afternoon, grabbed my bags, and took a $25 cab ride into Quito, which is about 45 minutes away from the airport. Alright, I made it, finally. This is the Hotel Mercury Alameda in Quito. Room is pretty nice, better than I was expecting, so that is a good thing. Let me check out the view real quick. So I think there are two really important things to know about coming to Ecuador, and that is, one, they use the American dollar, so you don't need to change money, you don't have to be worried about the money issue. And number two is, they use the same outlets. I'm super stoked to be here, and I can't wait to go into the mountains. It's day 2, and this morning I'm going to go get some breakfast. Then we have a meeting, or orientation. And then this afternoon we have a city tour, but looking out the windows here, there is a possibility of thunderstorms and rain every day for the next 10 days, at least 10 days, so we're going to see how this plays out. Our city tour started at the Panicillo, which overlooks the historic center of town. Then we walked our way into the city center. We saw some incredibly old houses on La Ronda Street, a fantastic area with narrow cobblestone roadways. The Grand Plaza is surrounded by government buildings, churches, and the Archbishop's Palace. We also visited a couple of churches whose exquisite interiors are really a testament to the importance of Catholicism in Ecuador. Just got back from our city tour, and that was a lot of fun. Got to see most of the major sites of downtown Quito. And then we went outside of the city to the equator and went to a little, I don't know if you'd call it a museum, but we ran some experiments on the equator, and it was a lot of fun. I balanced an egg on top of a nail. So yeah, so far, pretty cool. Having a good time. Looking a little gloomy outside today. We'll see if that clears up. Yesterday we had 90% chance of thunderstorms, and no thunderstorms occurred. But today is a new day, day 3, and we are going to do an acclimatization hike up Rucu Pinchincha, and that is 15,696 feet. We're going to take a gondola ride up, and then it's about 5 hours of hiking as far as I understand. And yeah, I'm excited to start my hikes here in Ecuador. The city of Quito is covered in graffiti, most of which is incredibly well done. There's been a delay. The gondolas are being fixed or something. Been delayed about a half hour. Some sort of small amusement park. On a nice cloud-free day at the top of the gondola, one can see all of the major peaks of Ecuador. Unfortunately, this was not one of those days. The trail is worn but in good condition overall. There are one or two sections where we had to traverse steeper terrain. The final push to the summit is a short scramble. All in all, it was just under 6.5 miles round trip to the gondola, which we did in just over 5 hours. No one experienced any altitude-related illness. There is a small restaurant at the top of the gondola which offers a spectacular view of the city and the mountains. Blue skies on day 4, looking good out there. Alright, so today we are heading up north to Sierra Fuya, which is just under 14,000 feet. And then, so the climb I think is pretty much just a hike with a little scramble at the end. Looking forward to that. More acclimatization, which should be good. So without further ado, let's get on the road and head north. The Fuya trailhead is next to a lake called Laguna de Mojanda. The trail to the summit was fairly easy until the weather moved in. We changed into our rain gear, we were pelted by hail, and we turned around as the atmosphere electrified and the thunder reverberated off the surrounding mountains. We only hiked for about 2 hours or so. I hear that the summit has a little scramble, but we didn't get to experience it. We retreated to the Hacienda del Sol. Yes, sweet dog. Alright, this is the double room, Hacienda Sol. Private balcony. We had a lesson in knot tying before a terrific dinner. Alright, good morning folks. Today we're off to Otavalo Market, and then we are heading up to the Cayambe hut. Tomorrow we'll have like a skills review. and tomorrow night we'll be attempting our summit. We visited the Otavalo market. This bustling open-air market is well known for woven products, but you can find most anything there. Yeah, lots of sombreros. Ooh. Finally, we were off to our first major objective. At this point, we had to switch from our bus to 4x4 vehicles. Our guide said that the road to Cayambe Hut was the worst road in Ecuador. Section. It was easily the worst road we traveled on in Ecuador, and at times it didn't feel like a road at all.
Right there. There's only one white HQ registered in the country, and the guy.
All right. We bumped and bounced our way up to 15,000 feet where we were dropped off at the hut's entrance.
One part I thought we were going over.
The stone hut was built on a ridge overlooking the valley, the receding Hermoso Glacier, and the summit. It's a really cool place to be. Baños, bathrooms. Upstairs is bunk rooms. Kitchen. Heater. There's the summit up there. Got a better view from the dining room.
We're just gonna leave. It's like, yeah, they probably really need to fix that. You know? They probably was because of like one of the.
We hiked up to the glacier to have snow school, essentially a refresher in the basics of mountaineering. Here's some ice screw action.
You're really like when you're placing screws and ever have 6 ice screws. Tire skivers. Yeah.
Then it was time to rest up for our summit attempt that night. We were up early, had breakfast, and set off towards the summit at about midnight. It was a very windy and cold climb. It took us 6 hours to the summit. From the summit, we could look north into Colombia, east into the rising sun with a volcano erupting in the distance. But the south had to be the most amazing view, with volcanoes Antisana, Cotopaxi, and Chimborazo off in the distance. We stayed on the summit for 15 to 20 minutes and cruised back down to the hut in 2 hours. Back down the bumpy road, we lunch and we're taken to the Hacienda Guachala. Here's my room. The oldest hacienda in Ecuador. Toilet, a shower. It looks like the oldest hacienda. This hacienda, the oldest in Ecuador, was established in 1585 and it has hosted many important figures over the years. Unfortunately, these days it's in a sad state of disrepair. That being said, it's a really neat place to explore as the compound has many large structures. On the road, we headed south to Cotopaxi, a lodge within the boundaries of the Cotopaxi National Park. The lodge is nice and offers the most spectacular views of Cotopaxi. I mean, the views of the mountain are just mind-blowing.
For visitors.
That's not good.
There's somebody that goes by on the trail.
That afternoon, we utilized some playground equipment to practice crevasse rescue while watching the clouds scrape over the summit. We left Cotopaxi for the Cotopaxi hut, which was a relatively short drive up the mountain. From the parking lot, it's a short hike to the hut. The Cotopaxi hut has been recently renovated and was fairly impressive. That afternoon, we turned into students once more for essentially a lecture on the dangers of mountaineering and the techniques to minimize risk. After an early dinner, we climbed into our sleeping bags, excited for our summit attempt on Cotopaxi, just a few hours away. Unfortunately, the weather turned for the worse. The wind absolutely howled through the hut, making all sorts of crazy noises that sounded like geese, freight train, trucks driving by. It was nuts. The conditions were assessed at 11, 12, 1, and 2 until the climb was finally called off. We were one of 3 groups in the hut. The others did leave but returned unsuccessful and wet and icy. Fortunately, we had one more peak on the itinerary, so this disappointment was minimized. Next stop, Hacienda La Cienega.
Just rolled into our next hacienda. Sure beats the last place. Holy cow. This place is enormous. Beautiful. Thanks. Bathroom. Standard toilet, sink. Ooh. Gotta love that color. It's beautiful. Beautiful here. Giant palm tree being held up by a piece of wood. Gotta love it. I checked into an amazing room. I enjoyed a beer in the courtyard with a couple fellow climbers and explored the grounds. I love this place, and if I ever return to Ecuador for more climbing, I hope to stay here again. Famed German explorer and naturalist Alexander von Humboldt stayed here while studying Cotopaxi. After a great night's sleep, we continued traveling south to Chimborazo. On the way, we stopped at El Rey del Burrito, a great Mexican restaurant in the city of Ambato. It wasn't long after that visit that I started feeling nauseous and my tooth started hurting. We pulled into the Chimborazo Lodge early afternoon and settled into our rooms. The lodge is situated in a valley south of the mountain which offers outstanding views of the mountain. A couple of us took a short hike before dinner. Others just stared at the mountain and watched the hummingbirds battle each other. Here I am, just waiting for hummingbirds, staring up at Chimborazo. I'm staying over here in that cabin in the upper right. The restaurant on campus is adorned with an outstanding collection of mountaineering-related equipment and knickknacks. We could have spent all night looking around that place. At this point, my nausea had passed, but my tooth was still aching and I wasn't feeling great overall. The lodge was close to the Chimborazo National Reserve entrance. and then it was a relatively short drive to the parking lot where we would be dropped off. We saw a lot of vicuñas on the way to high camp. We set off to high camp from the parking lot. I was feeling a bit crappy at this point and didn't record much of anything. We ate dinner and climbed into our sleeping bags early.
I'm gonna start the thing, guys. Okay. Alrighty. Thank you.
We woke for another alpine start. I was seriously considering not climbing because I still felt terrible. But I pulled myself out of my sleeping bag and got dressed. I think I ate 2 crackers for breakfast and then we were off. From high camp, the climb starts by traversing under some rocky cliffs. Then it's just a long slog up a steep, or relatively steep ramp to the Ventimiglia summit. It feels like it goes on forever. And from there it's a relatively straightforward push up to the Wimper summit. This is the highest point on the mountain and the furthest point from the center of the earth. We arrived at Hacienda Abersprugo and had plenty of time to relax until dinner.
Looks like a hacienda from the outside, but like a hotel from the inside. Very nice.
We traveled back to Quito where we would get COVID tested so we could travel back to the United States. I still wasn't feeling good and was a little worried that I would be spending the next 10 days in Ecuador. Later that evening at our celebratory dinner, we got our results and we all passed. No one had COVID.
Back at the Mercury Alameda. Got 2 rooms this time. Bathroom and bedroom. Nice. Still across from the Argentine embassy. Well, the time has come. I'm all packed and ready to go. But I have to say, in the 2 weeks that I've spent here, Ecuador's really felt kind of like home. And I think it's full of some great people and rich culture. Not to mention an absolutely fantastic, geography. These mountains have been amazing, and I think I'm gonna have to find a way to come back at some point. There are many mountains here to be climbed, and I'd like to climb them.
I split a cab with a fellow climber who was heading to Miami at the same time. Our bags barely fit into the cab. and then we were off. This was a trip of a lifetime, and I enjoyed all of it. It was kind of like glamping for mountaineers, or glamptineering, if you will. We stayed in really neat places, ate great food every day, even in the mountains. The mountains in Ecuador are so accessible to Quito, travel isn't an issue. We improved upon our mountaineering skills, climbed 2 out of 3 major objectives for the trip, and got to experience Ecuador and some of the culture, not to mention meeting some great people along the way. It was excellent. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and I will talk to you guys later.